officially 6 o'clock. Time to open the special meeting of the Board of Trustees for July 23rd, 2024. Can we have roll call, please?
Ms. Orch?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Here.
Thank you, Board. This work session is intended to provide an opportunity for us to engage in dialogue and back and forth about the legislative priorities and strategic initiatives for 2025. So I've got a presentation that I will go through. I will pause about halfway through. That's where we'll allow for some public input, citizen address, town hall style. This is what we did last year for our strategic initiatives town hall. And then after that, we'll turn it back to the three of you for just some conversation and discussion. And if time allows, we'll enter into executive session. So to kick things off from a presentation standpoint, last year you all adopted a 3-year set of goals. So these were your legislative priorities for the 2024 through 2026 fiscal year. They're listed on the board there, but just for folks that maybe can't see that, it's charting a pathway to long-term financial stability, continuing to provide high-quality safety services with an emphasis on crime deterrence and enhanced response times, revitalization of the community through economic development, beautification, and code enforcement, expand opportunities for recreation for all ages, continue to improve operations and operational efficiency with a focus on alternative service delivery, and to finally make progress on deferred maintenance and reposition existing assets, including both township buildings and roads. So what I wanted to do next was to just kind of provide you all with an update on where we are sort of year to date, what kind of progress has happened, what types of initiatives have maybe gone forward. This isn't intended to be all-encompassing. There's a lot going on in the township, but to just really hit some of the highlights. So from a financial stability standpoint, internally we set some goals and metrics around how quickly we would close the month. So closing the books is important because the faster we get them closed, the faster that we can go back and look at the numbers to make sure that they're showing up the way we want them to, and to be a little more strategic with our finances. So our goal, which you can see that target line on the graph there, is to close our stretch goals within 5 business days and our overall goals within 10. We managed to meet that goal 3 of the 6 months to start the year, and the overall goal of 10 days, 4 of the 6 months. Naturally, January is always a lag because we're closing out year end and there are a lot of extra reports that we can run. However, from a financial stability standpoint, we had a few other items that are worth noting. Top of the list is the police levy. We did have a police levy on the ballot in March. That did fail, which has led to some other challenges through an updated 5-year forecast, which we've continued to discuss, and I believe we'll probably continue to discuss as we go through the overall budget process. The link there on this slide actually takes you to our online financial transparency page, where you can find all of our budget information as well as our year-to-date actual spend. And then as sort of a positive note to round things out in this regard, we do spend a considerable amount of staff time looking at and applying for grants. And so we've listed a few different grants on there that we have applied for. However, on top of those grants, I'm aware of at least $2, if not $3 million worth of other grants that we have applied for that were just pending decisions from those granting agencies. Most notably and largest of those being a grant through the federal government for our police department that would fund police salaries. In regards to public safety, our goal there around response times and crime deterrence, we have the fire and EMS response times on the left of the screen. Our goal there is to make steady progress in those areas. One of the initiatives that's helping to fuel that is to actually utilize what's called AVL technology, so that's automated vehicle location, to know when we are actually en route so we get better response time data. As you can imagine, if you are responding to a fire, while it's important to say that you've arrived on scene and click the button for that, there's always a chance that we forget. And if we do, then that leads to some just human error in our reporting. And so that technology hasn't been up for a tremendously long period of time, but you've started to see a decrease in the numbers up there for EMS and fire response times in the most recent months. On the right-hand side, the top graph, that's property value saved by our fire department. So after each fire that we respond to, there are sort of 2 competing reports. One is what is the total value lost, and then what is the total value saved of the property on site. This is an annualized figure, and so you can see through year-to-date 2024, we've almost caught and eclipsed the amount of property value saved that we did in all of 2023. I believe, looking back to 2021, and Will Mueller could probably check me on this, I believe that was the year that we had the large fire down on Harrison Avenue at the storage facility. So there was a significant amount of material there, which led to a very inflated number on both sides of the spectrum for both value lost and value saved. And then the final graph on this slide deck is police traffic stops by year. So this is just through June. So if you're looking at the 2019 data, that's how many traffic stops we actually initiated as a police department through June of that year. You can see that in 2024, we have continued to make more traffic stops than we have in prior years. Our officers take a tremendous amount of pride in being proactive to the extent that they can be. And so you can see that sort of bear out in the data. Naturally, there was a drop in 2020 and in the years shortly thereafter, as we all have kind of navigated through COVID and learned, what we can and can't do in terms of keeping officer safety and what have you. For goal 3, which was revitalization, I've put up here year to date, so through June in each year of zoning permits. And so this is another interesting chart because in 2022, I believe we had the highest number of total permits issued by our zoning team ever. Currently, year to date, we are on pace to eclipse that 2022 record. And so they continue to churn, and that's really a sign of the overall economy in Colerain, because every time somebody needs to build a shed, replace a fence, build a new home, renovate for a new business or change the use, they've got to come through the township and see our planners in order to make sure that they get the proper zoning. Beyond that, we've had a few other things that we've really engaged in. So there are code enforcement violations. We've made a lot of progress there. We've been hyper vigilant on different things, such as some of our larger property issues. You'll see that sort of bear out tonight with the volume of property maintenance complaints, as well as junk vehicles that we've continued to see at trustee meetings, as well as some of the newer things related to vacant properties and rental registrations. Last week or 2 weeks ago, David Miller did a great job highlighting all the new businesses that have been opening in Colerain. That is quite an extensive list, and I just tried to capture a few of those that have happened this year on this slide. And then we have continued to see some pretty substantial progress in the residential space. What I like to tell folks when they ask what kind of residential development we've got is that you name it and we have it, whether it is for market apartments all the way up to multi-million-dollar homes. It runs the gamut in Colerain, and there's a neighborhood for whomever's looking to move here. Under recreation, we've had new features open up at 3 different playgrounds this year. So Colerain Park had a toddler playground, Skyline Park had a brand new playground, and at Blanchetta, we opened up a new basketball court. Our park visitorship numbers have started to improve. The one park that is, interestingly enough, where you can see a lot of the dips and valleys is actually Colerain Park. And what we saw in 2020 was a high point across the board. During COVID, everybody was getting out into the parks. 2021 was when we opened the new Fort Colerain, so we saw a huge spike in folks coming for that asset. And we anticipate seeing the same thing with the toddler park recently opening up. Outside of that, we've had a ton of different events from the year. That picture on the right is naturally a picture from our 4th of July fireworks. And so just to highlight some of the fun activities that have gone on in the township this year from a recreation standpoint. For operational efficiency, every year we have all of our strategic plan data out on the website. This chart here shows where we are year to date in terms of completion of the 2024 strategic plan. So we still got a decent amount of work to go in the last half of the year. But if someone were to go on the website and look at this data, they could see how did we do in 2023, 2022, 2021, and so on. One of the other big things that we've really undertaken this year is to start looking at all of our SOPs, guidelines, policies, and so really making sure that we are modernizing them where we can, and where we require board action, we'll be reviewing those and bringing them forward to the board for further discussion. Our goal is to get through at least a third of these per year so that we can, by the end of the 3-year cycle, have reviewed every single policy within the township. And then deferred maintenance. We were able to add dollars to the capital reserve, which was important to us. We've continued to make significant progress on our fire station projects, as well as a number of sidewalk projects. If you look at that list there, that represents just about every single sidewalk that was on our sidewalk plan that was adopted back in 2018, 2019. And, most of these are funded through federal dollars, which means that we have to wait until it actually gets done. But I would anticipate by the end of 2028, every single one of those will be fully constructed, open to the public, which will be a tremendous asset for our community. And then we still do have the training center for sale. So as we continue to look at ways to, make progress on deferred maintenance capital, that includes selling property that we're not using. And this is one, as well as a few other properties that we've sold through the CIC and what have you. So this is a long list. I'm not going to read through everything on it, but this is everything that we anticipated doing in 2025 when we set out to our 3-year strategic plan in 2023. So when we were developing the 2024 budget, we said, here's some things that we think we would want to get to in 2025. To the extent that there are dollars associated or known dollars, we've tried to include that and capture that here. But this is essentially everything that's been sort of in the pipeline and in public documents to this point. And so we wanted to pause here to just provide an opportunity that if there were any members of the public in attendance that wanted to provide some input about goals or strategic initiatives that we should consider for the next year, this would be an opportunity to do that.
Is there anybody out there would like to speak tonight? Okay.
All
Hearing
right.
none and seeing none, I guess we can move on.
Well, then the final item on the agenda was really to have a conversation and to allow you all some time to talk amongst yourselves about some of these questions. To me, the first question is, do we think the goals are still correct? And should we continue to chart this same pathway on legislative priorities? If so, then we could maybe start a conversation around what the initiatives are. Are there things that are missing? Are there other things that we should be adding to the list? And so I will stop talking and allow you all the opportunity to just kind of weigh in on those questions and thoughts.
You've been writing away. Do you want to speak?
Sure.
Okay.
In no particular order, this is kind of just a flow of my thoughts from the last couple of weeks. And I guess the theme to this would kind of be, was the football team in the movie with Burt Reynolds was Mean Machine. This would be Lean Machine. I want to continue with the pushing grants, obviously. And again, this is kind of a little bit everywhere. The sidewalk waiver fund, we have a number of sidewalk projects that we're engaging in that we're planned on using TIF money for or general funds for. I'd like to try to take that out of the sidewalk waiver fund instead to free up those money in the TIF funds or the general fund. I'd like to take a long look at parks. We spend $1 million plus in parks, and just take a look at the different options. I know that I've been told that the joke out there that they call the park down on the river Ross Park. There is such a thing as a free rider in the economy. If I think that we're as a board looking for ways to be more efficient, and I know years ago we tried to charge for parks, and that didn't go well for a number of reasons, but maybe there is a pay-to-play scenario. Maybe there's a scenario where Parks spins off and is their own unit. Maybe there's a scenario where just at parks that are frequented by people outside Colerain Township, there's a scenario where there's a card machine or something. To me, that would be something to kind of explore. Within parks, I guess, summer programming, again, I think we need to take a long look at that. It's not a core function of government. Summer camp, I think we need to take a long look at that. It's not a core function of government. I mean, we're talking about a situation where we're facing increased crime rates, and I want to make sure that we have the three important legs of government, police, fire, and roads completely funded. Summer camps, we can continue to have them. They could be pay to play. Those do cost money. The opioid settlement, to the degree that we actually get that money, and understand that yesterday or 2 days ago, Middletown actually accepted the Kroger opioid settlement, so they understand there might be more funds coming that way. Completely my editorial opinion here. I think we stand a much better degree to see the Kroger money from an opioid settlement than some of the other international drug companies that have found ways to kind of lean through the loophole. We spend in upkeep and our contract with the YMCA $360,000 a year on the senior center. I think that we need to take a deep dive and look at that. And make sure that is that a function that can be that the private sector could fulfill? Are we using are those funds you've been being used in the best way? Is there another option for that? Are we maxed out on property violation fees? And I think we've already started this an inventory of township-owned property. I don't want to dump it at a low rate. Like if somebody came in with a $32,000 offer now for the training center, I don't want to take it just to take it, but I want to understand what we have, which assets we have, and I want to monetize those. And I think Mr. Ungers has spoken a couple of times about the fact that we're going to have 2 open old firehouses soon, and I want to attempt to monetize those as well. And then get a bigger shovel. Part of this, I think, financially, we need to look at is to attract more businesses, to continue with new development, continue with TIFs, and like I said, police and fire. We have the $1.5 million in the capital reserve fund. I would hate to, but if necessary, we may need to use part of that. And I've heard a lot of this. I think you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. The building of 2 fire stations at once. We did so because we wanted to take advantage of the utility of building 2 at the same time. But also, it escapes me now, there's a law of economics that suggests that things don't go down in price. And recently, there was a couple fire station that was just bid out. What was the bid on that? That was...
That escapes me right now, but and while they are higher, sometimes it's different, circumstances, technology, building materials, but we are seeing continued increases in the construction market. We haven't necessarily seen any decreases in what things
Sure,
cost.
that's just the general inflation affecting everything. So, I mean, I'm glad we're started on them as opposed to starting on them next year.
And my final point here that I'd like to make, and again, I wish I had more of a theme, I guess, more thematical, but and I don't mean this as from like a bullying point of view, but we need to start holding state and county governments more responsible for their we need to hold them be more responsible for their expectations. I mean, I drive up and down Colerain every day, and I mean, I think I don't know if it was you or maybe David Miller told me that they don't plan on doing anything with the concrete medians until...
I can't remember if it was 27 or 28, and even then, the question to that is, are we talking state fiscal year or calendar year? Because if it's state fiscal year 28, I think that starts in 27. But still, we're talking several years before they do anything to replace or fix the crumbling medians.
And the sidewalk plans that we have done, that's a function of county government that we've said, all right, look, we consider this important enough because many of them are near schools and things like that. Well,
every single sidewalk on that list is on a county road.
Right. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, we can't storm the county building and say, do this for us now, but I'd like to start to hold them more accountable for some of this. It's their responsibility too, and we're a fairly big part of the county, but yet we're fairly well ignored, I think, when it comes to the county at times. I don't want to act like we're completely ignored because they've been helpful in things like the Sears purchase, the Port Authority has been, and things like that. So I guess the whole theme would be kind of, to lean machine to get leaner so that we can you know, some of these things that we've started just aren't going to be sustainable anymore. I mean, you know, I think it was, what is it? I'm going to attribute this to Ronald Reagan. It's probably wrong. He said, well, you got $1 million here and $1 million there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. You know, like $100,000 here, $100,000 there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. And I think that we've started a lot of programs that are very popular and successful, but we just ain't got the money for it.
Well, and I think to your point about the county level, there probably is an opportunity to have more strategic, whether that's meetings individually, each of you all with different commissioners, or, you know, myself having more time in front of the commissioners or whatever that is, to make sure that they're aware of the issues that we have, especially in spaces where they can have influence or impact. I know a number of these things that we're talking about, sidewalks, for example, we've met with every single person at the engineer's office, and the answer we have been told is no, and I don't anticipate that changing from their office anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that there can't be influence from other sources at the county level that could create change or create the improvements that we so desire in our community.
Well, that one email I sent you from the county when I had a resident complain about our medians, I said, please contact the county. The email back was, sure, Colerain Township can do whatever they want for it, but it's not in our fiscal budget.
Yeah, I think that the response, and this is the
That's what
similar
they're sending to our
language that we get out
citizens.
of ODOT is, you know, if you all would like to see something done, you are more than welcome to pay for it, and we will do it. Otherwise, we're going to do it when we please.
It's not in their short-term budget.
That's my, so it's really two buckets. It's to cut and also to get a bigger shovel, and I think I mentioned the TIF. We have approximately $250,000 in money coming in this year that's not pledged, that we had plans for, and I think that we need to look at it using that in areas that before we hadn't considered.
Sure.
So things like, I mean, I know that we can sometimes use them for police and fire, depending on what it is. Sometimes, I mean, you know, some of the TIFs, if they're in the neighborhood of the fire station, could be used for fire debt service.
Well, and to maybe capture where you're going and something that we've talked about internally, for example, there's the Colerain Town Center TIF, which is actually the Station 102 project is being constructed within the boundaries of.
Yep.
Finding a way to release those dollars that are currently required per bond covenants with the Generation Drive roadway, releasing those dollars so then you could pay for, say, debt service on a firehouse or capital for that firehouse or whatever else is actually physically in the TIF. That makes it a lot cleaner and simpler, but we have to, of course, get through the legal piece with the bondholders on the Generation Drive road before we can do those sort of things. So to capture what an example of an
Right,
initiative
exactly.
could look like around TIFs.
That's all for me.
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Matt. Just going back through the slides, the Goal 1 financial stability, it mentions the SORTA grants that we've gotten, the Joseph Road sidewalk grants, other grants, and you guys have done a great job with that. Do we have any update on a demolition grant for the Sears property?
We've not heard anything. The state did go back to the port in early July and asked them to clarify whether or not there was a letter from the EPA saying that the site was clean, which we were able to provide to them. So that should have satisfied what their questioning was, but formally have not been told yes or no at this point.
I mean, that's just, so, you know, at some point going into the cold weather months, which are coming up, we'll have to make a decision what we're going to,
Yeah, and
as
that's
far as that building or
the
heating it
frustrating
again.
part
Or,
about relying on other outside sources. And,
Sure.
and when I was saying the $2 to $3 million, I wasn't including that in that calculus because I believe that was a $6 million ask from the state.
slide 2, public safety. We get great reports from our police and fire chiefs at our meetings. It sounds like despite everything else going on, they continue to do a spectacular job for the township. The revitalization. Yeah, the different residential developments we're having are great, and they're coming along, and a lot of people don't know where they are or know. We do up here, the Staverman Farm, the old Beavis Elementary property. Abbeytown is,
Camper.
I drove back through there. It looked like it was pretty much
Kemper
There
and
might be
Pippin.
10
yeah.
lots left when I was back there that are still being developed. Copper Creek, Crosley Meadows, Dunlap Grove, Hunter's Ridge. And I mentioned to you last week, I drove back Sovereign and went off the dedicated part of the street that the township controls and was on the part that is still being developed. And once again, I see a street where the base asphalt is undulating and sinking, and there are areas marked for repairs, and that is not ours. And, you know, we really need to stay in front of the county and not accept that. Of course, they're gonna force us to accept it, but I'd encourage you two both to just drive
drive
back
back
there.
there.
It is like driving over a washboard.
Well, and to that point about the county, I think, you know, one of the things that gets lost is they have things like the thoroughfare plan, which define any time that there's a road that connects a county road to a county road or a county road to a state road, it's technically supposed to be a county road. And Generation Drive is an example of that, where it isn't. Sovereign likely will be an example of that. Now, we've heard from the residents they don't want it to become a county road, but just for perspective, that there are situations where getting the county to follow their own plans would be great.
It's not built yet, and it's in need of a lot of base repairs already. And I'd encourage anybody to, even though I think it says don't drive back here, I mean, it's open and people
Yeah.
drive through, but it's good to look at it now. And I'm glad the house is being built back there. It gives Colerain residents the opportunity to buy something new. And let me see what we have here next. Recreation, yes, there are a few new additions to our parks, and I understand Matt's part about maybe we need to look at how some of our parks could get some cooperation from surrounding municipalities or government entities because we do have a lot of folks in there that are not Colerain residents. Of course, we welcome any guest that wants to come. It reminds me of back when I did the review of the Hamilton County Public Library, though, and our guest that lives here in the township that shows up. When I did the review, we discovered there were over 30,000 non-Hamilton County residents with Hamilton County library cards using our library, which is great. I'm all for education and reading, but we do have a lot of people that live outside of Hamilton County that use our library and the materials there, and you have to associate a cost with that. Deferred maintenance, I wish that was goal 2 or 3 rather than goal 6, but we have got to keep up with our street inventory, and we have to be paving every year, or it takes no time at all you let it go for a year, all of a sudden you're 2 or 3 or 4 years behind every year that you let it go, because that's just something we need to keep up with. And as Matt said, and I think Kathy might be on board too, I'll wait for her comments, but the 2 fire stations that we're going to be leaving, we need to start talking about that now. I don't want to get into January and February and have them vacant and paying to heat them and having to have somebody stop by every day to maintain them. So there's some savings there, and, you know, if somebody is interested in it, now's the time for them to start planning. You know, 6 months till February 1st is not that long to have a business plan together and get financing and everything else in place. So I'd ask the rest of the board that we give a little bit more consideration to that. It's not that far off. As far as the training center down at 11865 Colerain, I don't know, do we send somebody down there once in a while just to check on it and make sure it's...
We do, and on that note, as well as with the stations, the plan is that the next time we have a CIC meeting that we'll be bringing forward a recommendation for a broker to sort of take over that process for the training center, but then also to be the broker that would be listing 26 and 102. We have had a lot of conversations already year to date with different groups so that they know the fire stations are about to come online for sale. One of the big tricks there will be naturally we have to finish the projects on the new ones and coordinate with the comm center. So there will, I assure you, there will be some overlap where both stations are operating at the same time. But our goal is to hopefully have something with a letter of intent or whatever that might be as close to our transition date as possible. The trick, though, sometimes with letter of intents, though, is you may move forward with something and then their projects stall and then you're left still having the property. You just get a little fee in the escrow or whatever else it is.
Sure, but I mean, right now is the time to be talking about that, not in December when it's upon us. So my whole thing is we have got to keep up on our street inventory and our township assets and deferred maintenance. every time you defer something and push it off another year, it's, as we all three talked about, the escalation due to inflation, it starts costing more and more to fix something. If you have a small hole in the roof and you fix it right away, your cost is minimal as compared to if you let the water come in for a year or two and then you've wiped out half the building. So, and it's not just the building, I'm talking about the streets and everything else. So we have got to keep up on our existing assets. And go ahead, Kathy.
I'm in agreement with you. I'd like to see the 3 properties listed. David, I know you've been working very diligently getting different groups, and we've had some significant interest in the training center and Station 26. So the word's out there, but I think we should formally get it listed. Since we're getting close to a completion date, if we know it's at the end of November, we can put that in any, advertisement that we do list with another broker that, occupancy isn't going to be to a certain date. About the senior center, I know you and I have talked about maybe renegotiating some of our terms with the Y. I have told you that I think our seniors pay and have paid taxes for the longest in Colerain Township, and they like our senior center, and it's a very busy senior center. So I really don't want to see us take things away from the seniors. I'd like to see another avenue of going about that. The parks, I think it's a great idea to start charging. I hope our initial cost isn't going to exceed what we're going to make a year. That's my other problem about that. Love the traffic stops, Ed. Keep that going. And the summer camp, there's not a camp, I don't think there's any camp in Cincinnati that these families can't pay. Every camp costs money. And so I think it's just a given. It's like I said, it's not, you said it, it's not a township obligation. It's a nice frill that we can give them, but we can still maintain the cost if we charge the families that, and we could have resident versus non-resident fees also. Same with the parks, if you want to do something like that. I think that's about all my notes right here.
I had a question one for Kathy and one for Dan. I'll ask Ms. Ulrich first. So, from your view then, from real estate, is listing the fire stations with the same agent that would have the training center a better strategy or worse strategy, since we're going to be talking about that the next CIC?
Personally, I feel you should have all 3 of them together, because if you got that agent calling in on Station 26, they can say, let me show you 109, you can show the training center. I think if you have one agent that is familiar with all that our needs are, I don't think you're talking, this hand's not talking to this hand to that hand. That's how I personally feel.
Okay, that was kind of my gut feel. Did Mr. Wackbeck, do you kind of agree?
Yep, I'm on the same page.
Okay.
All right, so, Mr. Unger, not to get too technical, so the county sets the street level with the streets.
The county has if they would use the same specification for subdivision streets that they use for county roads, it would not be an issue. You don't see, Springdale Road or Gaines Road or other roads having the undulation problems that are on Copper Creek or on Sovereign or on anywhere else.
So do they set the specifications for through the neighborhoods?
I love our
They
Hamilton County inspector, but
Yes.
But the undulation is still
So
because
what we're
of
talking
how-
about are the subdivision regulations, which are controlled by the county. I can't remember if it's exclusively controlled by the county engineer or if it's the county engineer in conjunction with the county commissioners. But the subdivision regulations, there have been some deep dives done by the other townships in Hamilton County, comparing our regs to neighboring counties. Ours seem to be the lightest in terms of requirements, and that's why you sometimes see some of these issues. That was actually a point that many of you brought up, I believe it was last year when we adopted our first TIF plan, was, look, we know we're getting roads that are not going to hold up for 30 years, so we need to set aside some of these TIF dollars for that purpose. That hasn't changed in our updated TIF plan like we had at the last meeting. I don't anticipate changing that unless you all instruct us to do otherwise.
So, and again, I want to understand, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, I just want to understand the structure of this. So it's set by each county. Is there a bare minimum that's required by the state?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so.
Just the county, yeah.
So each county can set it at whatever level it wants?
You have a lot of clay in that here in southwest Ohio, and you should have a minimum thickness crushed aggregate base to absorb the stresses of clay as it expands when it's wet and shrinks when it's dry and moves up and down. And there are situations where there's just not a whole lot of gravel under the road to absorb those stresses. If you put asphalt right on top of clay, you can expect it to fail quickly.
Okay, so,
And the great example would be the street I live on, the newer part of Fillmore. I live on the older section of it.
You have concrete.
The older section of Fillmore is different. The new section, as soon as you come in off Blue Rock, it goes like this because there was never any gravel, or there was a minimal amount of gravel put underneath it. I think we've gone down there twice in the last 6 years that I've been here, just to put in some hot mix to level out these speed bumps, these inverted speed bumps in the street. And it's a construction that I wouldn't accept if I owned a private asphalt lot or a private asphalt driveway. I would never build anything that way. And it's not just the county, it's just the builders want to spend a minimum amount
Sure.
constructing the streets also, and it's just it's different than the way I would do things.
so if I want to go and compare county to county, what I'm looking at, the variable I'm looking at is the amount of gravel underneath the asphalt that's required.
And you have to have something there to absorb the stresses of the moving earth. And if we were somewhere else, like even Terrace Park, where there's not so much clay and it's just all gravel going down into an ancient gravel bed, the ground drains differently. This clay holds this water, it swells up, it shrinks, it moves up and down,
And there could be requirements for different asphalt mixes. There could be different requirements around curbs and whether or not they're standing, rolled.
it's all base
of
problems,
that.
Jeff.
Well,
It's all sub-base
Yeah,
problems. There's
I guess
nothing
what I'm
wrong with
getting
the
at is
asphalt mix.
If you do start looking at subdivision regulations, there are all these other things as well that, Hamilton County may not have as high of quality, say, road specs, but maybe they don't require street trees or they do require street trees and a neighbor doesn't and things like that. And so that's where some of the tension I know has been voiced from other townships in our county is wanting to have a greater say in these subdivision regulations since we're ultimately going to be the ones that are going to be maintaining it. However, we don't have a mechanism to do that, and the state doesn't even provide us a mechanism to say no if a street isn't to the standard.
Right, and we went through that last year, and that's why I'm kind of coming back, because last year, or 2 years ago, because it was Mr. Mills and I were,
We actually had Eric come to a meeting, Eric Beck, and speak to us about it.
And Eric, I love you. You're doing great. But if there's ever been an example, and sometimes you'll hear me say, we're arguing about the same stuff. I will bet they were arguing about 50 or 100 years ago. I'll bet they were having the same conversation in the 70s when, Colerain went from being agricultural to all these subdivisions being developed.
and I understand that, because it sounds like because of the amount of clay that it's hard for me to compare from county to county because
Well,
what's in the soil is going to,
Butler County would be a good example because the clay and the topography of Hamilton County has been shaped tremendously by the glaciers that went through, and I would suspect that a decent amount of Butler County has similar topography for that same reason. That's why
And
you see a lot of landslides as well.
I'm not asking to build an interstate highway or heavy-duty airport runway. We're using such a minimum specification for new build subdivisions, and the problem is 5 or 10 years, I'll bet out there is it called Magnolia, out off Thompson Road?
Yeah.
I'll bet they're gonna be beating on us in the next couple of years. Hey, there's a big dip in the street. And
No, I'm not
we
trying
just
to-
accepted those like 5 years ago.
I'm not trying to issue any blame, and I'm just trying to
I
get to the
know.
bottom. I'm trying to find out what exactly,
It's an engineering issue.
and has there been any significant changes in these requirements over the last 2 decades? Has it always been this way?
There was an update done. I don't remember when that was last performed, but I don't believe the townships had a large say in the process. There were other entities, including, I believe, the Hamilton County Home Builders Association, that did have a say in the process.
And that said, as far as repair of existing streets and installation of underground utilities, there was a big change in the late 90s where they required controlled density fill to fill in utility ditches rather than filling them in with sand and gravel, which ultimately will shrink and ultimately will leave you with a sort of a bowling alley gutter to drive down versus the advent and development of approved flowable fills that it's a mix of like sand and cement and water, but it's not so much cement that you get a 4,000-pound mix out of it. It's just enough to keep that sand very stabilized, maybe 50 pounds of cement to to a ton of sand, and you can pour that in and it doesn't shrink, and you let it cure out for a day, and then you pave over it and it doesn't move, and it's just a better fix. So to answer the question, yes, there have been vast improvements in the specs, but not as far as new
Okay.
construction. There's been a lot of improvement in the repair of streets and the installation of underground utilities.
Okay, I'm sorry to get so technical on this. I know that the last two streets that have come up for us to accept, I voted no on. And my no vote has meant nothing, but I voted no out of principle because I've gone and saw the streets. And in one case, I could tell by the naked eye that it was not ready to be accepted. And in the other one, all the construction wasn't even finished. And I questioned whether additional heavy equipment was going to cause problems, and my no vote meant, I mean, I think we all voted no. Yeah, we all three said no, and it meant nothing, yeah.
And that said, there's that balance of, I don't want to attack anybody, it's just that it needs
Right.
to be made better everywhere. And as far as Sovereign, there's a bridge right there at Pippin to get across the waterway, and I do not ever want to own that bridge, and I don't think we own it right now, but we don't want to own bridges, you don't want to own retaining walls. There's just a lot of, you don't want to own a lake.
Yeah, we do
don't
not.
want to own Lake Gloria. We don't want to own that bridge. There's just things that are just such a future maintenance cost. You just never want to
And
own
the
them. So
difficulty is, it may not be our decision at all as to whether or not we take
Okay.
on that ownership.
And again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
oh no,
monopolize it.
we never get to talk to each other
Right.
about these things.
And I know that you know a whole lot more about this than I do,
that's
and I
my
just
whole
wanted,
bugaboo about it is when I say we need to keep up with our deferred maintenance, it's coming at us faster than we can expect to keep up with it. Even if we had more of a dedicated road fund,
well, if you look at the stats that come out of Governing Magazine, they say that every community is facing the same issue. You can't fix roads faster than new roads are coming at you statistically. That's part of the issue. That's why if you talk to Tom Weedman and people like that, they talk about increasing density as a way to solve those issues. And increasing density is not really an answer in Colerain because people come to Colerain because they don't want density.
well, and and having grown up here and grown up on Gaines Road and watching all this develop over my lifetime, I was out in Harrison today, and they are having huge areas of agricultural fields turned into subdivisions just in the last 5 years, and they're going to be having the same problems if they don't stay on top of it. And the development out there has been massive.
And Ross, I think, will face similar.
Yeah. Especially out in Harrison because there's a lot
Harrison's
of.
developing a
less
lot
than-
faster than
Right,
Ross.
well, Ross is on the way.
Even the county roads that are out there, the road edges are getting beat down
there's groups there.
because there's so much traffic out there now. But yes, so to summarize all that, that's why I think maintaining our existing assets, our street inventory and everything is just something you have got to stay ahead of. And,
With that road maintenance, what is the proximity of county roads to, I know you know the mileage of all the roads we take care of, but what is our county road compared to the roads that we maintained?
So I don't know the mileage of the county roads. I do know that I believe we have about 116 miles of roadway that we maintain. We had a map put together a few years ago that kind of showed where the county roads are versus the township roads. And for the most part, the township streets are located in Pleasant Run, Northbrook, and Groesbeck. You don't see a ton of township streets in, say, Western Colerain or the Harrison Avenue corridor, and Beavis sort of neighborhood is sort of a mixed bag.
Most of our major thoroughfares
Well,
fares
and
through.
generally, all-
But they're all, I'm just
We're all
saying to the
we're
public
mostly
that calls
subdivisions.
up and say, so in this street, and how many times we have to refer to them, that's a county street, you have to call Hamilton County. So it happens a lot in this office and calls through, or emails through all of us.
well, and if you live in a subdivision here
Right,
in
we-
Colerain
right.
Township, that's probably
But
I can't think of a subdivision that's not maintained by the township, and I can't
And
think of
where-
a.
yeah, where I
county
live,
road.
most of
Yeah,
them are.
road where you think that you're more of a subdivision than not. I think Hubble's one that folks sometimes think of in that regard, but that's
Well,
a county.
most of Hubble's in green, so you folks over there on Hubble, call Triffin and have him fix you up, so.
Well, that's a
Right,
great,
Matt, tell him to call Triffin, right?
That's right.
but Hubble's a great example of the thoroughfare plan because the fact that it's in two jurisdictions is why it's a county road and not a township road.
Right. But anyway, so that's my point, is we have got to stay up on our roads. I want to get going with properties that we are not using. We need to, as Matt says, monetize them. You know, there's two ways to get out of trouble. One is to cut things, and the other one is to economic development. And yeah, here we are. We need to get something going with the mall. We need to put David on it, Mr. McElravy on it, and get something happening there, and turn that into a positive. And I know that's going to happen someday, but that gets the ship turned around. So
to sort of summarize what I've heard from all three of you, it sounds like priorities remain the same. So there's no need for a legislative priorities document update like we've done in past years, since it was a 3-year plan. In terms of other next steps internally, we'll take some of this feedback to drive at some of our initiatives for next year and make some tweaks to that list. And then we will hopefully be bringing forward the first draft of the budget in November. So it's going to go fast, and it's going to be here before we know it. But I think that's a lot of great feedback from the three of you. With that, if there are no other parting comments, I would actually recommend that we adjourn for a brief executive session, a motion in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 to discuss the employment of public employees.
I motion that do we need to end the special meeting first before we do that?
This was, I think, contemplated on the agenda.
Okay, I see it on there. I motion that we would go into executive session for the reason detailed by the administrator.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, well,
So to use it, so we're still on the first meeting.
right, so
Okay.
we'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, well, why don't we just take roll call?
Ms. Orich?
Here,
Mr. Unger?
Here,
Mr. Waller?
Here.
and we have a motion to close
was there anything to
well,
Nothing to report.
okay.
so I motion that we close the special meeting.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, now we'll start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, July 23rd, 2024. It is, what is Verizon time? 7:04. So we take roll call again.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Okay, and I'm going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for our moment of meditation, Lord, thank you that you gave us this day and every day. Help us make the most of it with the peace and joy, and give us a blessing and for us and for those around us. Thank you. Okay, we have approval of minutes.
Thank you, Board. I would recommend a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Trustees meeting held on July 9th, 2024.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the July 9th, 2024 meeting.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller? Yes. Thank you.
Any presentations? None. Seeing no citizen address, is there anybody that would like to speak that didn't fill out a form? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, I guess we'll move on from citizen address to administrative reports.
I do not believe we have any administrative reports this evening.
Okay, then we'll move on to the trustee reports. You wanna
And
go
I'll-
for it?
I'll keep mine quick.
Okay.
I'd like to commend our police department. I've sent something to them over the weekend, and they had it turned around in 37 minutes. It was a citizen issue. Our Public Works Department, I was contacted Sunday evening concerning a tree that fell down into the roadway, and our Public Works got out there and got it cleaned up right away. Still getting the usual amount of things to go look at, citizen inquiries, and I appreciate everybody doing the best they can to keep up their properties. and encourage others in their neighborhood to do the same. I can always be reached at 513-404-3057 if anyone has something that they are interested in having me take a look at. I truly enjoy the work, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I'll go since, okay, you commended two of our departments. I want to commend, there's nobody even here. Our EMS fire department just received from the American Heart Association the Mission of Life EMS recognition, the Gold Target Heart Attack Honor Award. So congratulations again to another wonderful honor to our fire department. And lots of good things coming up. Wednesday, tomorrow, July 24th, we have in our parks, Shakespeare in the Park, starting at 7 at Colerain Park. And then the following Friday morning, we have Coffee with the Chiefs at White Oak Garden Center at 9 o'clock. And then Friday night, please come and enjoy the Remains Band singing at Colerain Park. And here at it's over here on the Senior Center, July 31st, we have the blood drive from 12 to 6. And Tuesday night from 6 to 8, we have the National Night Out with our police officers. It was a great turnout last year. Hope to see as many people out again. And also by July 29th, just letting all the citizens know, Gosling Road will be closed. Look to our Colerain.org for more details.
And for those wondering what the Shakespeare in the Park, it is Hamlet. So
Hamlet.
to be there or not to be there is the question
I
you
should-
must ask
he went
yourself.
up to me. Okay.
Whenever I hear the phrase Shakespeare in the Park, I think of that movie with Liam Neeson when he was a cop, and they said, you should never, they said, you open fire on those people in the park, and people with a knife in the park, and he goes, it was a he goes, yeah, anytime I see somebody with a knife in the park, I go after him. And they're like, sir, it was a Shakespeare in the Park event. I think it was Naked Gun is the name of it. O.J. Simpson was in it. Yeah,
I
believe it
remember
or
that.
not, the Juice was in that movie.
You really got way out there on.
Yeah.
That's the least amount of words you use to get as far off
Yeah.
track as ever, Matt.
I think you just topped me with that.
Lost in context.
I'm looking forward to National Night Out. I've been pushing for it for several years, and I felt really bad because we finally hit it last year, and I was on vacation. But this year I won't be, so I can't wait. It's a great event, and I look forward to seeing a lot of people up there. Just a couple of shouts out, Side by Side Ministries for all the work that you guys continue to do. They're, I guess, expanding their brand a little bit because they have an intern that was going through interviews with people and I know that they interviewed some people at the Township and myself as well. I had the opportunity, the pleasure to fill out for the state auditor's office the auditor's the questionnaire. It's very misleading because it's 4 questions, and you think, oh, this will take a minute, and you spend like a day and a half on it because it's so intense. And you like, please see addendum A, addendum B, but it was a good exercise, and it goes through the process of CIC, and which, for those that don't know, the CIC uses the same processes for financial oversight as does Colerain Township, which I'm sure soon we'll have a Colerain Township questionnaire. I had the opportunity, I didn't go to the grand opening because it was, I think, my last day of school, but I used this week the Rumpke drop-off. Last time, I used it 2 or 3 years ago, and I found it kind of unwieldy, and it just, I don't know, I felt like, stressed getting the stuff out of the truck and getting it there. This couldn't be more easy to use. There's about 8 bays, and you literally just throw all the stuff on the floor. And they have a big dozer that scoops it all up. It's fantastic. I actually rented a U-Haul truck and cleaned out my garage, which took about 2 days to do. But all this trash, and they just guess how many cubic feet, and nothing. You don't have to wrap stuff. You don't have to. There's no special things that need to be done because one of them was an old storm door that was made of glass. They're like, whatever, just dump it in there. And you just throw it on the floor. It actually, I'll be honest with you, it was the best stress relief I think I've had all summer is
Out of
dumping my
curiosity,
trash.
what did they charge you?
It's by the cubic feet. I got charged $66, which made me feel slightly uncomfortable because of the number. The only thing that would have been worse would be $666. But it was well worth it because my other plan was to farm it out over the next 15 weeks of my weekly trash pickup, and this just wiped it clean. It was beautiful. And there's a line of people, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning in the weekday, and a lot of people use the facility. It's just interesting because, you see stuff dumped everywhere, and, for a couple bucks, well, 66 is a lot, but you could, I had a U-Haul.
Yeah, big U-Haul.
Yeah, I had a U-Haul. It was just like, wow. This is like life-changing. I'm going to throw away more stuff. I'm going to try to simplify my life here. And I'd be remiss, just for any of my students that are watching, just to give them a shout out. So this is purely for them or former students. Great job. My seniors on the AP politics exam, which the pass rate was 70% nationwide. Their pass rate was 100%. Great job, gentlemen. And AP World for the sophomores, the pass rate was 62% nationally, and they did 90%. So fantastic to the guys at Elder.
Kudos to your teaching.
Well, they must have found an answer key somewhere is all I could think of. But proud of them. If you guys are watching, great job. Enjoy the rest of your summer. I'll see you August 18th. Thank you, everyone else. Enjoy the rest of your summer. And, don't dump stuff, because you can and it's actually fun. You can throw stuff down on the ground, and it's like what's the restaurant where you can throw the peanuts, except it's trash? Logan's. And the storm door I've had for 5 years, and I was so happy to get rid of it. It was such a uplifting experience that I just grinned, and my blood pressure dropped 20 points. So
Good.
I encourage people to do that. Thank you.
Okay, we're on new business.
Thank you, Board. The first 10 items of new business will be presented by Police Chief Ed Cordy.
Chief, if you have any trash to get rid of, it'll make your day better.
Matt will come over and get it with his U-Haul, so.
We'll keep that in mind. Okay, item A, I have resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution allows for removal of uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuge at the following properties: 9010 Colerain Avenue, 2456 Roosevelt, 2458 Roosevelt, 2474 Roosevelt, 2480 Roosevelt, 2486 Roosevelt. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll move to adopt the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the addresses listed by Chief.
I'll second it. It looks like they're all on the same side of the street on Roosevelt. They're all even numbers. I'll have to run back there and see what we see there. No other comments.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item B, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2400 Gulf Drive. At this address, there is a 1997 green Acura Legend, Ohio license plate HAP 1772. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring a vehicle located at 2400 Gulf Drive, which is a 1997 green Acura Legend, as a junk motor vehicle.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item C is a resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2815 Springdale Road. At this address, there is a 2011 Brown Infiniti M56X, Ohio plate KIB 9585. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle on 2815 Springdale Road, a 2011 Brown Infiniti.
I'll second it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item D is a resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2825 Grosvenor Drive. At this address, there is a 2001 silver Toyota Camry, Ohio HTK 7180. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we adopt a resolution declaring the vehicle located at 2825 Grosvenor Drive, which is a 2001 Toyota Camry Silver.
I'll second.
It's a junk motor vehicle.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item E, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3289 Sienna Drive. At that address, there is a 2012 black Dodge Ram, no tag. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to declare a junk motor vehicle at 3289 Sienna Drive, a 2012 black Dodge Ram, no tag.
I will second it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 10242 Spring Knob Court. At this address, there is a 2004 silver Nissan Quest, Ohio JGV 8212. Recommend adoption.
I'll motion to declare a junk motor vehicle, 10242 Spring Knob Court, a 2004 silver Nissan Quest, Ohio JGV 8212.
I'll second.
And thank you, Chief. It makes a big difference in these neighborhoods, getting the junk cars out of the neighborhoods.
That's all on our code staff, and I'll make sure they hear that. Thank you.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, the following, or the next four items are going to be from the Enforcement Review Board. So we have item G is a resolution declaring a property as a vacant registrable property at 3292 Compton Road. The CURB, or the Code Enforcement Review Board, held a case and hearing on the below property to consider it as vacant. Based upon the review, the CURB passed a motion to recommend that the Board of Trustees declare this as vacant and resolve that it be registered and fees assessed against the property at the address of 3292 Compton Road. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution declaring the property at 3292 Compton as a vacant registrable property.
I'll second that.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item H, resolution declaring property as a vacant registrable property at 6662 Daleview. Again, this is one that was held by the CURB that held a case in the hearing below, and they recommend that the trustees pass a motion to declare it as vacant and registered with fees assessed at 6662 Daleview Road, and recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare property as a vacant registrable property at 6662 Daleview Road.
I will second it. And interestingly enough, Chief, I had a neighbor of that property call. I did not know this part of the process was going on because I don't follow our serve board, but they called about that property, and he mentioned he had been cutting the grass there, and he was interested in buying it. I looked it up on the auditor's site, and the tax bill gets mailed to an address in North Carolina, and the tax bill's paid on it, but I looked up the names of the owners, and I Google searched them, and it seems that it's possible they're both deceased. So get your estate plan together, make sure your property's going to somebody, and I don't know how long. One of them was deceased in 19, and the other one was deceased about 2 years ago. So I know it's difficult for families, but make sure you've got an estate plan so that your property doesn't, where the last place it goes is to the local government. Hopefully families can get that settled before it gets to this point.
Could be in probate, couldn't it, Scott? Is it? 2 years.
Yeah, there's some, and maybe there was a disagreement in the family or something about it, and they're like, well, I don't like you, you don't like me, let it sit, and eventually it falls down because nobody's maintaining it, and just anybody watching or here in the room, get an estate plan together so that you don't have this happen to your property. We're not here to take it, we're not here to damage you, but eventually it ends up with the local government. So, because we can't let things like this go on.
Yes. Sorry.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item I, resolution declaring property as a vacant registrable property at 9854 Laura Linda. Again, this was before the CURB, and asked the Board of Trustees to declare this as vacant and resolve that it be registered with fees assessed. And again, that property is 9854 Laura Linda. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to declare property as vacant registrable property at 9854 Laura Linda Drive.
I'll second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Lastly, item J. This is a resolution declaring property as a vacant registered property at 9871 Marino Drive. Again, the Curb Board recommends that the Board of Trustees have a motion to declare this as vacant property and resolve that it be registered and fees assessed at 9871 Marino Drive.
I motion that we declare the property as a vacant registrable property at 9871 Marino Drive.
I'll second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
And just as one last comment, Chief, yes, I did look that up last week. There's two names that match the names of the owner of that property. One of them passed in 2016, and the female name passed in 2019. So this is 8 years after the male and 5 years after the female, and I just hate having to do that with people's properties, but if it sits for 5 years, what are we to do? You know, you just can't let things get overgrown and falling apart, and so that, I did do a little research on that one. So may God rest their souls. I'm so sorry they didn't live to get rid of their property.
Thank you.
No other comments.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Board. The next item will be presented by Development Director David Miller.
Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Thank you very much. So last week at our zoning commission, we heard a case CZC 24-6, and it is a major amendment to a planned development at 8640 Colerain Avenue. So that is the Jeff Weiler Nissan. So that's a planned development. They own the property that wraps around another parcel that extends all the way over to Sovereign. So at the corner of Sovereign and Colerain, there's going to be a wild water car wash that's been proposed. So it'll be a self-service with a queue for about 20 cars, I think an 11-bay vacuum center. And so that has been approved and recommended by the zoning commission. And so a public hearing is required by the Board of Trustees. And we are presenting to you a motion to receive this recommendation from the Zoning Commission, and then to set a public hearing for August the 13th, 2024 on this item before the Board of Trustees for that major amendment to the PD. So recommendation is approval.
So how would I word what you're asking for?
Motion.
Motion to accept the Zoning Commission recommendation and to set the public hearing for August 13th.
So by motioning that, we're accepting that we're approving it, or just?
We're just
Accepting
accepting
the
that they have
recommendation.
delivered it to us, which then starts the time clock for us to have the public
Okay,
hearing.
then I would motion that we accept their recommendation of approval, and that we would set a public hearing at our August 13th, 2024 meeting.
Okay, I'll second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. I'm actually going to recommend that we skip item A. The Auditor of State realized after talking to lots of other auditing agencies that with all these federal dollars that were made available through COVID and ARPA, that it was going to be quite the intense workload. And so they notified us today of an updated work plan that is actually for a dollar amount that is less than $5,000, which is within my contract authority signature. So I plan on signing that, so I do not believe we need to take any action on their engagement letter.
So in other words, what you're saying is he was so impressed by my questionnaire.
The CIC audit is still going to happen, and it's going to be a full audit. But next year will be our full audit, and that will be for fiscal years 2023 and 2024, rather than them doing a full audit just on 2023 this go around. Instead, they are going to look solely at our federal spending.
And it looks to me, looking at page 8, it says that this would have cost 16,728, and so they've said, no, you don't need to
Yes.
go to that level.
Significantly less.
It'll be less than that. Okay, well,
Well, thank you, State Auditor.
The next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Waycross for video production and distribution services. We've been using Waycross for quite some time. I believe that they provide excellent service. They submitted a proposal to extend service at a cost of $60,000 per year, which is what we are currently paying. This contract would run from March of 2025 through February of 2028. And this is such an important item that I know that their executive director was actually in attendance tonight. So appreciate Dana and everything she does for us, but I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we would authorize the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Waycross Community Media for video production and distribution services.
I'll second. And this helps us keep our compliance for transparency. This is one of the reasons we spend this kind of money.
Yeah, it allows us to stay transparent, but there is no requirement that there's any video production of any of our meetings. This just provides our residents, especially those that are paying franchise fees through their cable bills, an opportunity to view our meetings and to see them live and to be able to see our reactions and how we're actually contemplating things to just sort of add some meat to the minutes.
And they stay in a library and you can go back for years.
And we have gone back and looked at meetings to see what was said, and it's,
Yes,
you know,
we
been
have.
an effective research tool. And for the small staff they have at Waycross, they are everywhere that they need to be for us all the time. And I really appreciate so much work that so few people there are able to do. So
And Dana is great at her job, as she's listening now.
I fully support this.
I hear her laughing.
Ditto what everybody else said.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The final item of new business is a resolution approving participation in the Kroger opioid settlement. Over the past few years, there have been a number of class action lawsuits against various opioid manufacturers and distributors. This latest one was against Kroger. There's a larger settlement that we have an opportunity to participate in as a local government. We are required to provide an answer to this by August 12th, so before our next scheduled board meeting. And so I would recommend adoption of this resolution.
I motion that we give authority to the law director to execute the subdivision and special district settlement participation forms for the Kroger settlement participation agreement and placing any received funds in the township's One Ohio Fund.
I'll second.
And is that the same fund that the other, I think there was $12,000 in there?
That is correct. So the idea from the state, I believe, is if we're all putting these dollars into the same funds from an auditing and regulatory standpoint, it's a lot cleaner and easier because the use in theory should be for the same purposes.
And what this does is help, a number of our EMS runs are for folks that abuse drugs and end up Narcan or whatever happens, and it does impose a cost on local governments such as ours to deal with folks that get into the pharmaceuticals that they shouldn't be into, and this helps us recover some of our costs we have expended in the past and currently.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The last item on the agenda is old business. This is discussion and potential action related to 2864 Houston. This was a property that was likely to be demoed by us at one point. The owner interjected. We provided them the opportunity to rehab it. They provided us some updated photos. This was via text to email, so bear with me while I get through some of these. It's a little hard to navigate here, but he shared several different photos. Let me see if I can get this. Here we go. All right. So I'm just going to kind of click on a number of these so you guys can see that
While
they
you're
have
doing
done
that, I'm going to thank him for doing a good job, and it makes the neighborhoods look so much nicer.
So these are some of the interior photos showing that, you know, he has completed, in my opinion, the various requirements under the agreement that we entered in lieu of demolition. He's still got some of his tools there, but you can see the new floors, and then I'm not sure if he has any of the exterior photos as well, but this is,
Two of the exterior.
yeah, but as I click through these, I mean, this is clearly a far cry from what it was, 110% better than what it was, and I would recommend that the board authorize the township administrator to release I believe he provided us with a bond on this project and to close out the project.
I motion that we would release the bond associated with the project at 2864 Houston Road.
I'll second.
I also like to thank him too for, this has been a long journey, and I know that at times it's been frustrating for him, and thank him for his patience in improving that piece of property. Yeah.
Yes.
We have to vote on releasing the bond.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And the final items on the agenda are consent items. So contracts that I signed were with Spring Grove Cemetery. There were 2 different indigent burials, one for an individual with the last name Santiago, another with the last name Sullivan. We had a donation acceptance in Fire and EMS from Phantom Fireworks in the amount of $2,000. A donation acceptance in the Department of Fire and EMS from the Mount Healthy Eagles, Group 2193, and that was for $10,000. And corresponding donations for our police department from both groups. That's Phantom Fireworks for our police department of $2,000 and Mount Healthy Eagles of $10,000 for police. And I would recommend approval of all consent items.
I motion we would approve the consent items as presented.
And I'll second, and I say very, very deeply, thank you for all those very generous donations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And Mount Healthy Eagles must be quite an organization to
Yes. Thanks for picking us.
$1,000 to our operations.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, that goes to you, Mr. Baker, fiscal officer report.
No report today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Westbrook, do we need another executive session?
I do not see a need unless you all have a desire.
I'm okay.
I motion that we would adjourn the meeting at 7:33 PM.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, meeting is officially adjourned at 7:33. Thank you for all that are watching.